world. The world is still, in this context, we're playing where the world is still progressive, the technology is not that good yet. Hence why the motivation of and their interest of this average individual of this actor is for this person are staying in the world in order to develop their world better. They're the one who have seen the world. They know what the world fallacy on missing things that makes the world still developing. And developing world is not that good yet. These individuals want to be immortal not because they're egoistic or they're scared to die or something. It is because they want to improve the world, because who would want to be immortal in a developing world that is not that good enough? Hence, if they want to be immortal, they just want to have a better world to be seen. But then the main reason why this actor prefers to be immortal is because when they know they're not immortal first, the world isn't that good yet. Hence, they want to live forever to see a better world. They want to live in a better world, and they prefer to be an immortal. But then how does their interest will be manifested, right? These individuals can be a scientist, programmer, technologist, detective, or the jobs that can help the world to be more developed, and their identity on being immortal will be exposed. The preemption here is if the opposition want to bring about mental health, even when these individuals will get depression or mental health affected because they don't age and they have lost their loved ones, to respond regarding this case then. This 5 stage of grief that they are affecting them will be just a short-term impact, because then it is the actor that choose and have preference to live immortal. And secondly, even if they will be numb on feelings or etc. because of countless people leaving them, at least they are preparing a better world for next people who will meet them, no matter if they know this immortal person or not, right? But then, why won't this average individual be a villain? As we had already know that this kind of average individual are someone that is average, and their first interest from the very moment was to develop to the further of the world, a better world. Hence, these average individual are not going to be a villain. But then first argument regarding the urgency then. In this current status quo, the world are not developing to the peak yet. There is so many issues such as poverty, crime, abuse of power from the president and politics, and also low developing technologies. And how is our urgency linking back to this? By underlining the motion, it is the actor interest to actually wants to be immortal. Therefore, by being immortal, they will actually have the biggest potency to actually save the world. And by justification on why they want to do it. First, they will want to save the world because when they realize they're immortal, of course, they want to live in a world where the world are still developed. They want to live where the world are developed and actually not in the worst state. They will want to live in a better world. Dear jury, I want to ask you, if you are immortal, do you want to live in a world where it is filled with poverty, wars, and also crimes? No, right? Knowing that you're immortal and you could potentially save the world, you will do so. Maybe for the first few years, you won't just care about your ability. But after years where the world will in a worse state, like global warming, actually environmental problems, poverty happen everywhere, food scarcity, and also abuse of power by the new government, this will make them have the urgency to actually do something about it. They, the immortal being, will feel the world to be intolerable with the sense of justice, and also trying to make the world that they're gonna live forever is actually enjoyable enough. They won't want to fix the world, right? But this second argument regarding responsibility then. When this immortal person acknowledge that and know that they are immortal, they will be grateful and won't waste their life for something that is not worth it. Because they think they're a chosen one to get the blessing from God or the ancient ones. They know that they have a burden to help the world. Moreover, we characterize to you how the developing world is not even that good yet. Well, yes, maybe some of the continent will already have a country that are developed. But then the main interest of this actor or individuals is to see all world fairly count as developed. When they know the burden on their back is so heavy, they won't waste it because they acknowledge and realize that only them that can save the world. Even if one of their friends are gonna even if one of their friends is someone that can live up to 100 years old, they are still aging and getting old. They cannot help this person, this immortal being. But then these individuals that are preparing to be immortal, they know that they will not age and have some old people sickness like back pain, leg pain. They have the ability to continue and help the world. But then, how can this actor achieve their interest, right? Because people know that this guy or girl is immortal, they will let this person have their way, even if someone doesn't like this individual and want to hurt them. At the very end, they're immortal. They won't die. And secondly, they can travel continent to continent, country to country. They have so many times. They won't age. They won't die too. Even if the progress is slow, at the very least, it is still progressing to a better world, right? When our side can help the actor to achieve this interest of them to be immortal, to see a better world, they will be enjoying their works too at the end. They will get the benefits too. Even if they're also doing the most works, still there are also other scientists or technologies developer existing, so they will actually be helped too at the end of the day, right? The difference is we need this immortal person or being to continue on developing the world, because no more scientist or technology developer is not immortal. But then in case if we are two best case, then even if our side will take a real long time to get this world to be more developed, or it will be hard for people to accept this person, at the very least this person is doing it for the future of the others and itself to enjoy later. And secondly, even when they're exhausted or sick or what, they can take a rest. They won't die even when they are sick. They just give them time to recover, let them eat their medicine and get back up to save the day again. And if oppositions really wants to question how can our side really solve all these problems, then one response regarding this: there's still another person with jobs that are still politicians, doctors, and another thing. What we want is this person to continue and cater to the world, to be more ready and to get this world more developed. Hence, then I am very proud to propose today's motion.
The Prime Minister spent 6 minutes and 52 seconds to open the case of the opposition team. Please welcome the Leader of Opposition, Naura. To the Leader of Opposition, time is yours.
Okay, hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, before I start my speech, my pronouns are she, her, and my POI preference is just by unmuting yourself. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The problem is being an immortal would just create an individual that causes more harm. Okay, first of all, I have that's two. I have two problems. First of all, a person wouldn't appreciate the quality of time, and second of all, an average person is considered risky to have this unlimited power. This problem arises first in the first place because they choose into being immortal without knowing the risk and without knowing the information of how it actually feels to be immortal, because immortal doesn't always mean that there's more benefits than the harm. They don't see the harms at first. Okay, first of all, this immortal will live on forever even if they're sick. But okay, then by them not being sick, or like is by them not being sick, and this immortal will live on forever, they wouldn't care, and they wouldn't cherish the quality of life itself, and therefore we would prefer an average individual in a developing world would prefer to not be immortal. The goals that we want, the thing that we want is an individual to be more careful and appreciate the quality of time and people around them. From a person appreciating the quality of time would most likely result them into contributing more into the world. Example, being more determined about their dreams and goals. Okay, immortality is handpicked by them, but they wouldn't know the risk at the first place, right? They wouldn't know what they're gonna experience in like 10,000 years time, in 100 years time, and you are doing that to an average individual, which they don't know nothing about. The main characters here, are, of course, an average individual itself, right? And about the average parties or person that most likely be affecting the average person and the society itself, and the person around this immortal person individual. And in a developing world, we know that our world in the status quo right now is not a good world yet, and it's not a better world yet. But an immortality would also still cause harms, and it would still have its flaws. And the flaws are more bigger than the benefits themselves, which I will later explain in my arguments. Okay, before I move on to my arguments, I have 2 points of rebuttal. When the Prime Minister said about a better place in the world. This is untrue. How can you guarantee that they would make a better place in the world? Because this is an average person that we're talking about, a person that doesn't have the qualifications of material. They doesn't have the qualification of popularity in the first place. How could you guarantee that they would make a better world in general? And because this person doesn't know the risk, they don't know the information about how this world could be changed for the better. And even if they have immortality, that is not gonna guarantee, because there are still harms of them being mentally terminally ill, and that would not be a short-term effect because it would lead into a long-term effect. And secondly, the individual person would not have the incentive to make a better place. They wouldn't have the sense of urgency because the concept of time doesn't exist in their side. I will explain this later further in my second argument. Okay, my first point of argument, they would suffer in loneliness. And we must highlight that loneliness right here could lead into a lot of problems. And first, I'm going to explain the characterization. How technically loneliness is a really bad thing that could result in several bad impacts and would practically make them not able to think and not to mechanize this immortality in a good way. Firstly, loneliness would drive someone into mental issues, and it in most cases would drive into insanity because they're just watching their loved one die and they're just watching the people around them maybe pass away in time. Secondly, insanity would be something that is hard to deal with. And when these people they know they are immortal, of course, it what driven them insane and has pressure on them in the first place. And then oh, right. When someone has shortcomings or mental health issues, it would also make them more vulnerable. In most cases, the states that they will be in is unpredictable and would lead them into not making a contribution to the society and this developing world. We must also know that the loneliness here could also driven them to much more deeper problems because loneliness is a hard thing to deal with. And the problem is, even if the benefits of being there are benefits of being immortal, we want to highlight that the harms to a person even surround them, family, society, government would be a bad thing. Okay, for short term effect, they would experience joy and excitement. Oh, I could live this long. I could make a contribution to this world. But the thing is, in the long run, it would be more harmful for the individual, even in their surroundings. And imagine you are an immortal individual, and people that you love are not immortal, and you're just gonna see them pass away. You're gonna see them die in the process. Okay, that would do a lot to your mental health and would cause you loneliness that would drive into insanity. And the impacts of this would be far more crucial, as we stated earlier, that immortality has its benefits, but we must know that the harms are still larger. We do realize that not being immortal would be better, especially in this developing world. This developing world needs a large contribution from people, and comparatively in our side it is better because even in proposition side has the benefits of saving the world and all of that, but they would always have challenges along the way, and the challenges are harming to individual that would create pressure and problems along the way, where in our side an average person doesn't have to have the immortality. It would be better for them in the long run. And I'm gonna move into my second argument. They would be too laid back and not have the concept of time. We feel like humans by nature are lazy creatures. When things are comfortable, we prefer to stay laid back and enjoy the peace. But when the time is to put them in the equation, then it changes how humans work. When we know we have limited time, or when if there's a very close deadline in the current time, we will be incentivized to work harder because we know that we don't do it right now. It will put a lot of burden for us in the future because we know the consequences will happen if we do not complete the task in the given time. Now, when you are immortal, the concept of time basically does not exist to you. And normal people who aren't immortal has the incentive to work harder because of the concept of time. They know that they won't always be in their 20s. They want to achieve things in their 20s. That's why they have goals what to achieve in their 20s. But people with immortality would not able to achieve that because they won't always be living the life of a teenager without the adult problems. That's why they enjoy to put the most of it when they are not immortal. As an average individual who's immortal, we would lose the sense of time. We would lose the sense of urgency. We would feel like all of the time in the world, we would feel like we can always do this later. We can always do that later. And the problem right now is an average individual in the developing country who's immortal is that you would not do any contribution to yourself or people or whatever. But even you do contribution, it would be more or less. Because from the first place, you are an average person. You would not be someone who has an extreme amount of motivation or ambition that will always lead you into actually doing actions and making contribution. You're just an average person with no inherent see whatsoever. The ideal situation that we want is for beneficial to be towards an average individual and not make them immortal. And that's why I'm so proud to propose. Thank you.
The leader of opposition spent 7 minutes and 10 seconds. To continue the case of the government team, please welcome the Deputy Prime Minister, Desmond. To the Deputy Prime Minister, time is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, I'm the second speaker of the site off, and my PI way is verbally. So just open your mic. And if I don't answer your PI, that means I have decided to deny it. And also I'm gonna be starting my speech in three, two, and one. Repeated cycles, this word are something that happen on our current world. Basically, people are gonna live, be born, and then die. But also doing nothing that actually progresses to our current world. Especially when we're talking about a developing world, we have a lot of conflicts and also problems happens, which is why we as the average individual that suddenly gets power of getting an immortality power will be used according to the usefulness of the developing country, developing world. Rebatos first. Side opposition said that they won't be able to create a better world. First response, we have said that they already have the needs to do it because their interest exists. And also they have their entire life to do analyzations toward the words. Even if they fail, they have their whole life. There is no way that they won't be able to create a better word when he literally have the entire life. Second response, they said that they might not even do any contributions. That it will also mean that it will be the same as status quo. They won't even be selecting the ability to become immortal at the very first place. It's because they have the incentive that they choose it, that it will mean that they'll do something to any contribution toward the developing world. Like a rebuttal, they said that when this average individual got sick, they wouldn't appreciate the quality of time. This is unjustified for side opposition to just say this. Exactly because they got sick, they felt hurt. They feel sympathy towards these other humans being that might possibly die regarding because of the sickness, which means the empathy are gonna be happening on this average individual of immortality, which means that caring will happen on our side because the average individual are able to know the feeling. Sir Ribato, they had been going around, but they had never said the problem of this current status quo. Why this current status quo needs to have someone, an individual, to be immortal or even not. What I had heard only them was only lonely or something that happens when they become immortal. First argument then. Long-term effect. Panels, please notice on the premise that what will happen when we as the average individual in the developing world suddenly gets a power to be immortal. They said that they're gonna be lonely. We notice that of course when we become immortal, we're gonna suffer from loneliness, mental breakdown because people close to us are dead or even our childs are gonna die before us, right? This is all only based on the short term, which means that this individual will definitely have mental breakdown from the early start, only the start. When they had gone over it, this long-term effect will obviously work out because they had gone over every single emotion of their related families dying, which means that this effect will no longer stand when it's related to a longer future, which means long-term effect. We, as the average individual in the developing world, while having the power to become immortal, will have with the very best towards the developing of this world. Why is this urgency done? Firstly, we notice that on our current world, there are so many injustice and many crimes that are done without transparency and had just gone by without anyone holding or trying to find the transparency. We do, as the average individual, the suddenly gets immortality as someone who has the power over immortality will not die, whatever, because they have the power to not die. They have the power to have immortality, which means that they're gonna live forever, which means second point that some people on our current world are egoists that they're not worrying about the environment, right? We though as average individual who has an immortality power will try to fix the stuff because we have the mind and ability because from the very start we will want to have the very promise of improving the better country of this developing world, and that's why we choose to become immortal. What is justified though on our side? We, as the average individual, which was the only individual given the ability to be immortal, we are the only sole individual that was given the only ability to hold every single responsibility that we are gonna have to improve the developing country, which means that we as the average individual will already need to focus on the work because we are immortal, and when this planet doesn't do any good, for example like this planet just get flooded by water and have no lands anymore because of global warming happenings, it means that this average individual will also have no lands anymore and will be swimming like a fish for eternity, and that's why they have the responsibility to also improve on the better upcoming of the world, which proves that when they didn't try to improve the world into a better place, they're gonna be the one to suffer because they are immortal and wouldn't be able to die. Second argument of better words. Panels, please notice only on our side these words are gonna be able to evolve into a better place. Especially when this particular average individual will have the ability to live forever and be immortal, he will be able to see a lot of phenomenon happening. For example, like word hunger or anything, with him being live forever, to be able to think much more on how to solve it or anything. Because they basically have their whole life to think about it, do research about it, or even analyzing it, which means that these particular average humans are gonna be the one to be able to change the world. First layer of harms of ours. Maybe side up will just suddenly deny us by saying that what if this dude suddenly reforms and becomes a villain? We believe that it is unlikely to happen, especially when he has his whole life to think about, and in a particular developing world, which means that every single human on this world are important towards the developing of this country. We believe that these particular average humans are able to realize and know that this is very important for him to be able to lead this whole world into becoming a peaceful place, and they're gonna be able to live a better life. Second layer though, going on to my our benefits that is gonna be happening on our side, which is government. First, panels notice that if all average humans become someone immortal, this means that they have 2 points. Firstly, they're gonna be able to fulfill their own interests. Why would someone that has an immortality wouldn't use that towards their advantage? We believe that they, as an average human being, has their interest of protecting the world. We believe that everyone had dreamt on becoming a hero or someone that's gonna be able to fix the world to becoming a better place. Their interest on improving the developing country will be so beneficial towards the progression of this because they literally have their whole life, which means that they will be able to find transparency or even that happens on current society, which means that their interest of this will be needed and be an urgency of this average individual to have the needs to deliver their needs. And then going on to my second reason of helping the world of benefits. Our word on comparisons will have the ability to help the world. Their worst case will only be right that their word will stay right status quo, where everything will be divided into a lot of parts and there won't be anyone trying to make the developing word to work together as a team. Conclusions. Honorable educator, please notice that we'll be able to prove that on their side, there won't be anything happening other than the current status quo to be repeated on their side. Notice that on our current point that both sides are trying to prove that is that developing word to becoming a better word. We have proven that firstly, this kind of better word will be achievable easier on our side because this particular person which won't die will be able to do their whole life doing research and not gonna be able to die or lose any single memories that they are gonna have. Hence, this average individual will suddenly get the ability to have immortality will be able to provide a lot towards the developing world. Yet, on side opposition, everything will only be like status quo, where everything stays the same. Poverty happens, world hunger happens, discrimination happens, nothing will change. Our side, though, it's different. Someone that has the ability to immortal and live forever will be able to analyze and try to share every single knowledge that they have, analyze that will contribute so much towards the developing world, which means that our side try to fix the developing world where a lot of stuff happens and side opposition didn't. Weighing here is if you can guarantee these individuals to be immortal in order to help the world, why not? Why not support them? Developing world to be a developing world will take time, but at least our progress is gonna be achievable at the end of the day, and not like side opposition, which won't do anything except that poverty, world hunger, and everything will still be happening on their side. That's why I'm proud to propose.
The Deputy Prime Minister spent 7 minutes and 14 seconds. To continue the case of the opposition team, please welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition, LD. To the Deputy Leader of Opposition, time is yours.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, so my API preference will just be in chat. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so 3 points of rebels coming from the opposition team. First, about intention. Second, about long-term impact. Also, shortly about the urgency. First, about the intention. Government side of the house said that ordinary people will most likely be making a lot of contribution. This is are also unturned and inexclusive. First, let me remind or define what our average person is. Somehow, people who are not having the best consideration, thinking, decision, critical thinking, they will most likely to be only taking their powers as advantage as on their individual side, or even if they are making contribution, it is also happening in our side because of how most actors in the society itself are already contributing towards the society. And there are also risks, for example, like manipulation, bad intention, short consideration. And it is not low risk of people are being so easy to manipulate. For example, like government are testing these peoples because they are considered immortal or cannot die easily, and they are most likely to be taking advantage of them, which is unjustified. And second, the long-term impact. Their side of the house say that obviously the pain or sadness only happen in the start. This is also untrue and unjustified because pain is not an ordinary thing. Pain is what also considered in immortality will most likely to be harmful in the average person because it cannot be erased as a whole. Sadness are also not ordinary because the average person are most likely to be depressed. What is the effect of the depression itself? The person will not have motivation. They will have, therefore, the benefits in the government side of the house will also not being true. And also the urgency, there's another house side, the urgency is that crime, injustice, and also etc. And this is also untrue because of how the human resources are also important, which means an average person is like the big side of the society itself, which means the human resources are also affected by the average person, which means when they are unwisely using their power, it is affecting the human resources itself. And moving on to my extension, I would like to extend my LO's second argument, which is they will too late, they cannot have the concept of time. First, the mechanism will solve the problem. When the individual choose not to be immortal, then at least the average individual will have something to push them to actually do something productive in their life and contribute to the world. This average person in the developing world could still do a lot, and if they are motivated, as opposed to if their cases. And what are the impacts? An average person will have a life expectancy of around 80 years old, could have done so much in their life. If they decide to be immortal, then they will lose the sense of urgency in their life and will be too laid back eventually. The world around them will also change. They will be drowned in insanity, like I have already explained in my previous speech. And why is this important? Because when people are getting demotivated, depressed, sad, and also feeling lonely, this also means that the benefits of immortality also doesn't exist at all. And comparatively, in our side of the house, will give a lot more meaning and urgency into the average individual's life. They will see that have limited time. Therefore, they want to do something more productive. While in the government side of the house, because of their immortal and the average person will most likely to be laid back, they will not have anything to motivate them in doing something productive and make contributions. And imagine if you're an ordinary person who doesn't have any power, really significant power in society, which means you are first, you have unlimited time. You are considered an utility by an institution or government who have bad intentions to you, and also you are mentally harmed. Why? Will be lonely. You will be you watch your loved one die, being used by other people for their own benefit, etc. Even without immortality, this already happens in the status quo right now. Which will be the most urgency and will be more significant if the immortality also exists. And moving on to my point of argument, practically average person and their contribution are risky. So the action involved in this motion is that the average person itself, the above average person or an institution or government, and also the society. What's the problem? An average person will not think twice or critically about their decision. First, because they only think individually. Second, they want benefits for only themselves. Thirdly, they could be do risky things. For example, like be manipulated. And the ideal situation is that people at the first place are having zealous need, dream, etc. Why? Because this is what they basically came from as a person naturally. And this is important because these type of things are being valued because of time, which means without their having limitation on their time, these things are actually not just an ordinary thing where they can achieve it whenever they want. And also in this status quo right now, people are actually being the human they naturally are. This is what they are supposed to be, what we are supposed to be. Valuing time is very super important in our life. And on our side of the house, we will most like to be more valuing these things, even the little thing in the world. The status quo right now is what we are meant to achieve. That is, our time is limited. And the impact is that without an average person being immortal, there will be less chance of the society become worse because of their lack of critical thinking and decision. And this is important because first, time is somehow the most important in our life. When our time is eternity, is therefore we manage to didn't even realize how important time is, or even the people around us. And also, the average person could do bad things, like what I have just elaborated. And comparatively, in their side of the house, they will most likely to increase the risk of this problem rises, which the most worst case scenario where society are being bad, which they never even consider this at the first place. And moving on to our classes. First, about the harm. The class was on how is a way which bring more harm rather than the benefit of being immortal itself. The the government side of the house said that immortality will be beneficial more in the society. This is actually wrong because what I already rebutted at their point of speech, because of how the immortality then will increase the chance of sadness, the manipulation, or even the depression, which means they will be demotivated. They will have no intention in life at all. And compared to our side of the house, people will most likely to be developing in the in the developing world because of how people are also improving time by time. This means, and the conclusion is that in their side of the house, they will most likely to be changing the way people live. people will most likely to be only thinking about how, oh, I'm going to live eternity. I'm not going to die because this is what I'm supposed to do. This is actually wrong because of how people, it is unjustified when the harm are actually harming the average person, because it is the big part of the society, which means it's also the urgency because of how we really appreciate the life that the Creator has been given to us. That's why I'm so proud to oppose. Thank you.
The deputy leader of opposition spent 7 minutes and 12 seconds. To complete the case of the government team, please welcome the government whip, Celine. To the government whip, time is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
I'm Celine, the Speaker of the government. Any POI can be done by unmuting yourself, and I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Advantage. They say that the immortality will taken advantage of the side opposition suddenly said that immortality would be taken advantage. Yet they never answered that is which advantage they would be taken. Like what would happen if they took advantage was never explained in the side of opposition. Therefore, I will continue to my first class that is about long-term effects. Dear jury, at the end of the day, I believe that our team should win this debate by this clash. In our side, we need this mortal person to actually live long enough to actually help save the world, and by making a world a better place. In our side, the world will be a better place since they would be the only one that can save the world and be the only one that can live long enough to continue and finish their vision, mission, and their project to actually save the world. They can work on a 10 years long project or a 50 years long project since they're immortal. So this goal will be achievable. They won't have to rush it out, and they can have a long time to actually fix their plan to save the world and also finish up a lot of world issues. Also, regarding about their mental health and social skills, they will no need to worry about it. If at the end of the day they actually become a world hero and actually help to save the world, they would be have known by the citizens, and they will have friends and people that will love them. Why? Because when they become the world savior, a lot of people will feel appreciative to them and eventually will respect them and actually love them. And in the journey of saving the world, they can also find a lot of new friends and know a lot of new persons. Last thing, they would have the leader of mentality. When they already lived for so long and have seen so many things, they have lived long enough to see the civilization falls and created. They have seen enough to actually understand that they have a responsibility to actually do something since they are the only one that is immortal in these 8 billion world people. On long-term effect, what will happen? First point, the immortal in the world will actually fulfill their own interests. By being immortal and making the world a better place for them, they can enjoy the status quo world they created and shaped, and actually make their life as an immortal more enjoyable and more tolerable for themselves. Second, the immortal, being the superior and help shaping the world into a better place, they would actually eventually help the world too by fulfilling their own interests. By making the world a better place for themselves, they, as an immortal, will also solve a lot of world issues such as poverty and also crime. Point of justification why they can do that. First point, they would live long enough, so even if they are tired, they will have enough time to rest. Second, they will have a desire to help solve the world since world will become intolerable. Third, why they can solve world problems and even advance the technology, they've already lived, they have the time of the world and also will be more intelligent. How? They've already lived long enough to actually know about a lot of skills and knowledge. They watch how human civilization works and fall. They would know how to build a civilization since they saw how many of them falls and fail, and how to ensure a golden era after seeing so many world leader leads. Justification from the opposition. First, they say that they wouldn't cherish their time in life. Hence, it is better for this actor to choose not to be immortal. True response to this. First, we really question if they prefer to be an immortal person in a developing world, why won't they cherish their time? This average person will want to enjoy a world. It will be better to stimulate their incentive to live a better life when they prefer to be immortal. Second, compared to the opposition, when this first point, when the average actor live in a developing world, they haven't really feel and live their lives to the fullest, hence why they prefer to be immortal. Second, when these average actors live in a developing world, they haven't lived themselves to the fullest. In a scenario where they live in World War II, this individual realize how bad is the world and they want to see more of the future by having an incentive to have a better world. Immortality blessing them won't be a bad thing, but then when it's under opposition, they can't really do anything unless they can help with the next generation. Wait, it's lagging. Wait a minute, it's lagging. Can the LO stop the timer? Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So about loneliness. At the end of the day, yes, they would be lonely and they would probably feel depressed. But first, notice that not everyone will actually be very bad or depressed. The immortal will actually have the interest to want to be immortal. Also, okay, in the worst case scenario, they would be lazy. But how long they would be lazy? At the end of the day, this person will be bored with laziness. And at the end of the day, the world is changing and it's changing in the worst way. The world will be intolerable enough to actually make them to stop being lazy. They wouldn't want to live in a world where they cannot even feel comfortable enough to stay. But they cannot die. So what can this end with? They will eventually want to help to fix and shape the world. Comparing both sides, best case scenario and worst case scenario, which their best case scenario is that the individual will be immortal and the world will progress the same as the status quo. No immortal that can help the world. So no one will live long enough to actually help and solve the world issues that is quite hard to be solved. And no one will live long enough to actually finish the world program. But comparing to our worst case scenario, and that is the person will live in loneliness and sadness. Weighing both of our side, how can our side ensure more benefit? Even if they are depressed for quite some time, at the end of the day, they will live forever. They would live forever. Can they truly be depressed forever? No. At the end of the day, they would get out of bed and do something. And not even because of some external force. It will be because of external force. Remember, they're immortal. They will live long enough to maybe feel the effect of global warming and many issues such as poverty. Supply and demand of food is low and also inflation. Abuse of power for corrupted government world will be intolerable. Example, they will also feel the effect of all of that. For example, food scarcity and poverty, they would feel it too. They would feel hunger and also are affected by corrupted government and make them pay tax higher. They would feel global warming and they will also feel the abuse of power from corrupted government. By this, they will obviously want to stop being lazy and do something. They will be suffering a lot since they are immortal. They will have to suffer worse and bad things forever. For my second class is urgency. When we have to characterize to you from the first beginning of this current status quo, the world are not developing at the peak yet. There is many issues like poverty, crimes, and etc. And how is urgency linking back to this? By underlining this motion, it is the actor interest to actually wants to be immortal. Therefore, by being immortal, they will actually have the biggest potential to save the world and justification on why they can do it. Several points that we think that it is urgency. First point, when they know that they are choosing to be immortal, they will be very grateful and won't waste their lives to be something not worth it because they know that they are the chosen one and they get blessing from the gods and the ancient one. They know they have burden to actually save the world, and if they want to see a better world, they will have to contribute to it. And also because their interest exists, they have an entire life to do analyzation towards the world, and even if they fail, they have the whole entire life to fix it. There's no way that they won't be able to create a better world when they have the entire immortal life. Second point, developing world is not good enough yet. We want this world to change into a developed and more progress, and hence why being a mortal existence, they can help with one problem in the status quo, and even if it's just one problem, they can cater slowly. Third point, they won't use it as an unreasonable thing because we have already told you that, as we already know, this kind of average individual are someone that is average and their interest from the very moment was develop a further and a better world. Hence, the average individual is not going to be a villain. Side opposition never really give us a reason why is it an urgency for us not to be blessed this average person with immortality. Hence, I believe both sides have an interest to have better development world and will fall under the winning hand of prop. Therefore, I'm very proud to propose. Thank you.
The government whip spent 7 minutes and 16 seconds. To complete the case of the opposition team, please welcome the opposition whip, Kirana. To the opposition whip, time is yours.
Okay, hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Oh, okay. My pronouns are she, her. My POI preference is you can just unmute yourself. So I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges and panelists, they have never given us a proper mechanization of how this immortality works. They have never given us a characterization of this, like whether or not this person would be able to end their life or not, or whether or not they would still feel pain, or whether or not they will still go old regardless. So therefore, as opposition is, we are just going to assume that this immortality means that you will never die no matter what. Okay, so you need to remember that when an average individual gains immortality, it doesn't mean that they would suddenly, okay, firstly, I want to rebut their points regarding their mental health. Like they would say that because you have an unlimited amount of time, you can just move on with your life. You need to remember that this
when this average individual gains immortality, it doesn't mean that they would suddenly have such a strong mental health and be super stoic. You would still be a normal average person. The difference is just the amount of time you have left in this world. This means as a normal human person, you could still grieve. I feel like the government fails to put themselves in the shoes of this individual person. They also kept talking about how it would be easy for them to bounce back from suffering a loss of their loved ones. But you need to remember that they are still a normal human. Their human heart is still there. They are still as emotional as they were before. And therefore, we can compare this immortal individual to what would happen to a normal person when they suffer too many losses. What would happen to an average individual if they see all of their loved ones die is that they would feel abandoned, they would feel lonely, they would feel like they have no one to talk to, which would then lead to insanity. Also, the opposition side has never given a proper likelihood on why they would not fall into insanity. Moving on, you kept the government kept on characterizing the individual person as someone who would care about other people. Like, for example, they said that they will feel like they have a moral burden to help the world, or like they would not want to see other people suffer. But this is not fixed. You cannot ensure that the random average individual person that gets this immortality is automatically a good person or someone who would want to contribute a lot. But okay, for the sake of equality, let's say that the person given the immortality has good intentions to help other people. But then again, we have already explained from our previous speakers that this average individual would not have the sense of urgency to do something because the concept of time does not exist to them. But okay, let's still engage in their best case scenario that this immortality power is given towards someone who has the best intention and has a lot of motivation to improve to the no, thank you. The developing world. In their case, this person would be very, very ambitious. They would be very successful in making a system that, for example, fixes the problem of poverty now. But the problem is this person would definitely get a lot of exposure and get a lot of attention. Now, the risk here is that when you are very, very ambitious, and then over time, people would notice your power of immortality. There will be people wanting to take advantage of you because whatever you do, you cannot fix the fact that there are evil people in this world who would want to take advantage of someone else. It could be someone who wants to take advantage of your ability to not being able to die, or it could even be the government or a party who would use you as a test subject so that they can find out where this immortality came from, and that comes with a lot of pain to endure. Like we as opposition, we would not want to endure that. Okay, so in conclusion, there are three situations that could happen. A, the average individual would have bad intention. There is a possible chance of this happening, and if this does happen, this person would use their immortality to take advantage of other people because they know that whatever they do, they are immortal, that they can do anything they want. So in the worst case scenario, the world would just turn into a very, very bad place because then again, this person has immortality. They have an unlimited amount of time. And then B, the average individual would be would have like a normal amount of intention. They are probably a good person, but due to them lacking the concept of time, they are too laid back to do anything. Therefore, they cannot do any contribution. Okay, see, their best case is that the immortality would fall towards someone who has lots of ambitions in improving this world. But then, because you would gain a lot of exposure and attention, and over time, people will notice your immortality, that you will then suffer from the bad people existing, and you will always be taken advantage of. Okay, so then that means the government has never considered the risk of this power of immortality falling to someone who has bad intentions. That could lead to a world where this person takes advantages of everyone because they have the ultimate power. And even if it's in their best case scenario, that person will then suffer because the bad people in the developing world will keep on taking advantage of this individual. Okay, now let's put all of that aside and let's actually see in the long term, because the government has never mechanized how this immortality works. Then we as opposition are going to assume that you will never die no matter what. Okay, sure. Okay, so let's say you have done a lot of contributions to the world and you have helped a bunch of people, but at the end of the day, the earth is going to die and every single human is going to be extinct, and then you would be the last remaining living thing in the universe. I do acknowledge that this is a very extreme case, but the government has never properly mechanized this immortality, so they should have seen this coming. Imagine you're just floating in outer space for an immeasurable amount of time. And okay, even if in their case, like you can just bounce back from the loss of a loved person, well, in this case, you would have this long-term sadness. You would never recover from this insanity because you would have no one else to talk to. You would just be there in the world with nothing else. Okay, so then how would this compare? How would this compare from the opposition's case and also in the government's case? In our side, there is no chance of this power being given into someone with an evil intention. And that means and also even if this power of immortality is given towards someone who has the best intention in the world, it still does not guarantee them of getting the happiness that they want. It still does not make them. It's still, even if they manage, even if it does fall into a person who has a lot of ambitions, people would still take advantage of them due to the powers that they inherently already have. And that's why we feel like, as the opposition side of the house, this we would never take the power of immortality. Thank you.
The opposition whip spent 6 minutes and 36 seconds. To close the case of the opposition team, please welcome the reply speaker from the opposition side of the House, Naura. To the reply speaker, time is yours.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, I'm gonna start. Okay, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges and panels, in this debate, we believe that there is two clashes. First of all, there is harm. Second of all, whether or not the immortal average individual in the developing world would have the incentive to actually save this world. Okay, first of all, in our side of the house, we have already elaborated really well on how being immortal is actually really harmful. Even though, okay, there are benefits at first, there are benefits in the short term, but the harm in the long term would be worse because these people could be utilized by more powerful people. And these individuals could also experience insanity. They could also experience mental health issues that would create them into underperforming in one's contribution to a developing world. Okay, and secondly, their side of the house have lack of considering how all of the actors were not only the average individual who are being immortal and also forcing them to not be lazy or create a forcing on how these people with power needs to be contributing to the current developing world, not these just average regular people that is granted with immortality. In this debate, the urgency are the world condition and also the impact of being immortal itself. We had elaborated how an average person are having the most risk of the benefits turns out to be harmful for themselves. And the government side seems like they are always forcing them into contributing, making a world a better place, or even making more taxes, which is more unjustified way to be treating people with such power. And what if in the first place, when they just granted this immortality, they didn't want to do it, and they are enforcing this to an average individual? And we already addressed the risk and also the harm that are crucial and really harmful towards the people with this power or people around them. And this is the risk that are also having a lot of factors. Immortality would just not making them realize of the risk of that immortality itself. The government side didn't recognize this really well. What they considered is only the development, where it wouldn't be achieved if the harm that we elaborate exists towards the immortal people. And then the thing is, first of all, this debate and as opposition, we stated an urgent situation, as in this country, it would the urgency it would be in our side because feelings and mental state is a big aspect in our regular and daily life, and someone can suffer from that. It could lead into the failure of going through the activities of their daily life, and how it is very risky for someone to be immortal, especially in a developing world. Practically, as we stated before, these immortal average individual would be utilized in a bad way by these powerful people. And utilizing doesn't always mean good because it would be bad too. And our part should win this debate because the harms in their side are larger than the benefits. Why? As we stated before, that insanity is something that they could experience that would bring harms for the long term. And why is this insanity bad? Because insanity is something that is hard to deal with. That is something that could make them underperform in their daily life and when they're contributing into something. The proposition side of the house mechanized and explained that these individuals are immortal, but they also assume that these individuals doesn't experience being hungry, sleepy, or tired. When in reality, in our side of the house, we are talking about the status quo, right? When you are immortal or not immortal, you could still feel these emotions and still feel this because you are human. When you are immortal, you just are a regular human, but the difference is you live a longer life. The concept of time that is existing in our side, because the concept of time is something that all individuals should appreciate. But in proposition side of the house, they assume that one day after depression or insane mental state, they would just wake up and feel okay. But they didn't clearly elaborate it that in one day, the context of that developing country would already just be worsened. And then in their side of the house, bring why immortality actually making the most contribution where it would be achieved because the harm still exists without the mitigation of the problem. Our side of the house are also having the opportunity for ordinary people contributing into society, wherein the glorification of immortality and their side of the house is too glorified, and they don't have the guarantee that these immortality people would make a contribution. And that is why I'm so proud to oppose. Thank you.
The reply speaker from the opposition side of the House spent 4 minutes and 25 seconds. To close the debate, please welcome the reply speaker from the government side of the House, Desmond. To reply speaker, time is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you, LO. I'm the reply speech of the government side, and I'll be starting my reply speech in 3, 2, and well, timing for us to countless saints that guaranteeing this individual who prefer to be an immortal person will give us benefits, example in shaping the world more better. But the several reasons why opposition cannot win this debate. Firstly, from the start, they never really engage in our case characterizations. They're just saying no, it won't happen. Opposition characterize how these individuals have an incentive to a better life and help for better development. Second, the main case of side opposition is just regarding mental health and loneliness. We have responded to you, even preempted to you regarding mental health and loneliness. We told you that these 5 stages of griefs that are affecting them would just be a short-term impact because then it's the actor that chooses and have preference to live immortal. Even if they'll be numb on feelings or act because countless people are leaving them, at least they're preparing a better world for next people who meet them, no matter if they know this immortal person or not. Hence why their case should be credited. Third one, late case coming from opposition with regarding more definitions toward what will happen to the immortal well-being should not be credited. Last week, keeps on accusing us of not explaining what the word actor looks like on under our side. We have brought up to you, even with flaggings, this accusation should not be the tipping point down. Going on to my first question of long-term effects towards the future. Panels, on long-term effect, what will happen? Firstly, the immortal in this world will actually fulfill their own interests by being immortal and making the world a better place for them. They can actually enjoy their own world they had created and shaped and actually make their life as an immortal more enjoyable and more tolerable for themselves. That's why we think it's gonna be important. The immortal, second point, being the superior and help shaping the world into a better place, they'll actually eventually help the world too by actually fulfilling their own interests. By having the world a better place for themselves, they, as an immortal, will also solve a lot of world issues, such as poverty and also crimes. Weighing both sides, their side have no clear benefit at all. They keep claiming the harms, and that is loneliness, and we have already explained on how to actually fix it, and that they will feel the effect of this explosive word or even example of food scarcity or poverty. They will feel it too. They will feel hunger and also are affected is there is a corrupted government. They will feel global warming and everything. By this, they will obviously want to stop being lazy and do something. They will be suffering a lot since they are immortal, but they will have to suffer worse forever, but they're gonna be able to fix it. This human is a rational human, dear jury. Can they be lazy and stay in bed if they live in World War II, where bombing happen here and there, where people are suffering and world hunger keeps happening here and there? At the end of the day, they'll eventually be affected by this. And as a rational human, they'll eventually do something towards the better future of this carbon world. Please, dear panel, acknowledge this human is a rational human that have some sorts of conscience and also rationality to be helping the future humanity. Second question, urgency. Notice that we have pushed an urgency regarding that this current status quo are not enough at all because the current developing world are unable to prove and finish every single step that they have. For example, poverty or world hunger. Yet, on our side, at least we're gonna try, or people are gonna have their entire life to research regarding this. We believe that these kinds of urgency that we have on our current status quo to be able to be solved by then on our side. Going on to our benefits then. Firstly, we have said that this ability to be immortal are gonna be able to solve problems that exist right now. They already have the desire to improve the developing world, since they're the one to choose the immortality power themselves, which means that they know they will not die and will suffer for a long time. Yet they still chose an immortality power because they wanted to prove everyone that this average human will be able to solve the problems that the current developing world have. Second benefits, lifetime ability to support their life. When we think about someone, they'll be able to have a lifetime to support the welfare of the developing country. It means that they have the time. That wasn't supposed to be enough on the status quo. Concept of time doesn't exist on side of opposition because on our side, people are gonna be able to have their entire time to be doing research to solve the entire problem that the current status quo have. When our side are more able to have a better world development as an average individual, I believe these two important quests are the main tipping point. When both urgency are different, we prove to you the importance of our urgency that is regarding the world of our current developing world. And that's why I'm proud to propose.
The reply speaker from the government side of the House spent 4 minutes and 8 seconds. That is the end of U-16 Grand Final. This is a silent round and there will be no verbal adjudications. Debaters and spectators are expected to head back to the main room. Thank you.
Thank you all.